Good afternoon. So welcome to the last session of the Enterprise Fair 2025. And like last year, we're going to take an hour to learn something together. Perhaps to expand our consciousness, perhaps our open-heartedness, perhaps our awareness of what it takes to create an enterprise, to run the rides, and to close it if needed. So this is the Honoring Lifecycles session, and I hand over to Marilyn, who will talk to Anne about beginnings. And we need the beginning slide. Thank you.
So Anne.
Thank you.
Welcome to our conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you in a few minutes to give us some story and background around the enterprise that you've begun. But before I do that, I want to just remind you and me, and as we're going to have two more circles, that we're going to be talking into the circle, and we have a whole group of witnesses around us. So I was thinking about how can we make sure that we're creating the conditions where we can feel it's okay to share what you choose to share. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about the Indigenous story about watching the flow of the river. So I'm thinking that what we're going to do is we're on the bank of the river. And so we're going to be starting off on the bank of the river, and then we're going to take another set of stories about stepping into the river and going with the flow of transitions, which may be a bit more turbulent. And then at the end, as the river flows on, that people will step off and move out of the flow and back onto the shore in regards to the ending. So I'm really grateful today to you and the others who have chosen to come and tell your stories, not only about the organization, but I think it takes a certain amount of courage and vulnerability to share this personal story. And I just want to invite you to share what you think is appropriate, and that those who are witnessing this journey to also, if they want to have more information, to be respectful, but to come directly to you or to the others that they hear, so that they can get the story from the people who own the story. Mm-hmm. So this is a little travel log. Grab a travel log going down the river. So, Anne, thank you for starting us off today about telling us a story about what's it like to begin an organization. How did this start for you, and what is the organization?
So the organization that I started just over 12 months ago is my own small accountancy practice. I've worked in an accountancy practices before. For 20 years, I worked with my husband Lee. I worked for him in his accountancy practice. And I've worked in industry and in social enterprises, but always for other people. And I love working with entrepreneurs. I admire and respect them because they take a risk. And for the first time in my 30-odd years as an accountant, I started my own practice. I became an entrepreneur myself. And my practice is called Ways to Make It Count, because it's an accountancy practice that's there to serve social enterprise and people who want to improve their communities and their town and the planet. While I've spent 30-odd years helping other people start theirs, it was only when I started my own practice and I actually felt what it was like to be taking responsibility that it hit me. I'm taking risk here. I'm taking financial risk, personal risk. And yeah, it's a different feeling when it's you starting your own enterprise.
Thank you, Anne, for that beginning of waking up to what it is to commence an enterprise. So after you woke up and realized that you were taking risk, what were your feelings about moving on from there? What did you think were your next steps?
So having having had the experience of working in an accountancy practice before, I knew what I was letting myself in for. Anybody who speaks to the revenue a lot, you have my sympathies. So I knew I had to get my registration with HM Revenue and with my institute. I had to set up my bank account. I had to set up my own accounts and make sure that my accounts are done monthly, just like I do them for everybody else. And it's true that the people who paint other people's houses, they're the last to paint their own. So my accounts are done last every month. But all of that, I think, what really brought it home to me was this. In the past, I've advised people, and what I realised was a really great way to start is to ask other people and to listen to advice from wherever it's from, and to speak to people who've been there before. So it's really quite handy that I live with the person who's done this before. So when we had our practice in England, we tried not to bring work home. We tried to keep work at work and home life at home. But I'm so glad and grateful that I had my husband there to advise me. And I tend to be enthusiastic, and Lee tends to be the sensible one. So I think we make a really good team of people. And yeah, he said sort of, gosh, Anne, you've listened to me more than you have for quite some time, so.
So that's great, Anne. I know that role swapping between partners can be a little bit sensitive.
Oh, yes.
So what's it like having an employee now who used to be your employer?
Do you know what? I now see his point of view when he used to say that I had a lot of opinions. I get that now. In a lot of ways, it is wonderful because we've worked together for so long, and in a lot of other ways, we know how to press each other's buttons. But what's really great is the wealth of experience that Lee brings, and I try to listen to what he says. Now, Lee's speaking in the endings bit about when his practice was sold, so I'm just intrigued as to what he's going to say about me.
Okay, you're setting us up for all the way to the endings. But in the meantime, I know that when you look at starting up a business, enthusiasm and energy are often what is attractive to bringing in new clients. Have you found that natural impulse in yourself is actually very useful?
It is, and I think if you must start with enthusiasm. If you're going to start an enterprise, it's got to be something you love with all your heart. It's got to be something that you are prepared to put your time and your energy into, and I think that shines through, that comes through. You can't start a new enterprise half-heartedly.
So that wholehearted practice, have there been some things that have surprised you in a positive way?
I think things that have surprised me in a positive way is, as an accountant, I've got to say this, thank you, my clients. Everybody pays me on time. That is so lovely. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And any new business, whether they're an accountancy or not, would appreciate that.
Definitely.
So as a counter to that, has there been anything that surprised you in a negative way?
I think I have new respect for people who start now. I've walked alongside people and sort of held their hands, but when it's you and it's your responsibility, there's a whole other level of, gosh, this is down to me now. And so again, my ultimate respect and admiration for anybody who starts a new enterprise. And one thing with this small area here, my goodness me, we are full of entrepreneurs and enterprises, and people start them in a wholehearted way. And I think what I've really appreciated here, compared with England, and don't get me wrong, I've loved our clients in England, is I love to work with people whose ethos and ethics align with mine. It just makes every day a happy day.
Thank you, Anne. If you said that you have been in business now a little bit over a year, if I remember that?
Yes.
So are you beginning to see what is your next phase? Are you beginning to see what will take you through this beginning stage and start to open up into the next stage, which we'll be talking to other group of people?
So the next stage is the transition stage. So you start, and can I say, more than half of new enterprises fold within 18 months. So to simply get through that is wonderful. The next stage is growth, taking on staff, taking on other people, expanding. That's a whole new thing to do.
That's beautiful, and I think that's a perfect segue for us to take it into the transition stage. Thank you, Anne, for sharing your stories.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you. So I'm calling all the transition. You know who you are, or shall I call your names? George and Campbell, Ian, Tim, John Talbot, and Jonathan Caddy. Sadly, you won't all have as long as Anne had, but she broke the ice, so we aim to be a little bit more succinct. Over to you.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome all of the transition team here. And I'm going to ask you two questions. Well, I'm going to ask each of you to say who you are and the organisation you represent. And I just want you to say why you find yourself here today. And then I want you to tell us how it's been for you in the transition stage, and to share as much of how it's felt for you that you're happy to share. So I'll start with JT and we will go around.
Thank you. Just the first,
Yeah.
why am I here?
Yes.
Well, firstly, I'm John Talbot. I'm representing Culern House, and we're in transition.
Thank you. Hand on the microphone.
Hello, I'm Campbell McLennan. I'm representing AES Solar with George. So I'll let George introduce himself.
Indeed, I'm George Goudsmith and I represent AES Solar.
I'm Tim Slack, I'm the Executive Director for NFD, and it's about transition.
Thank you.
I'm Ian Smith, today representing Dunland Limited, and in transition, wishing we were in the next section.
I'm Jonathan Caddy, and I'm chair of the Finhorn Hinterland Trust, and we have been doing some major restructuring, so I can actually step down.
Thank you. So the next question I will be asking each of you is, just tell me a little bit about the transition and how it has been for you.
Yeah, I think we started our project of basically rescuing Culern House 3.5 years ago. And for me personally, it was just a tap on the shoulder saying, this is a community property that's been in the community for 40-odd years, and we have to rescue it. And I put the word out, and we were able to raise a ton of money, almost magically. And so it really felt like it was the right move, and we were being supported by the universe. And that was before anybody had any idea that the foundation would cease to exist. And so trying to find our way as what do we want to do with Culern House became really challenging and turbulent. And we'd originally asked for people to put their money in for 2 years while we figured out what to do with it. It's now 3.25 years. We think we do know what to do with it now, and that transition from the rescue mission, and I might say it's 50 different, more than 50 investors, past and present members who have some personal connection to the house. You know, they either lived there, they might have met their husband or wife there, they might have done a workshop. So, you know, it's a very much an angel investment. But we now think that the purpose of the house is to be the workshop venue of choice in the park. And then we can do catering, and we can do some accommodation, and we have a wonderful workshop space. But that's really running a business. And so from a rescue mission into running a business, and we decided we needed a business plan. And a year ago, I put the word out, does anybody have any business plan experience? And we didn't get anybody, and so I wrote it and circulated it and tried to get some feedback about the reality of it. But it's quite a different experience now, moving from this kind of rescue mission to how do we make this business pay for itself and generate enough revenue that we can give interest or at least repay those people that need it. So at the moment, it's kind of scary, I would say. We don't know where it's going to go. We do know that quite a few of the 800,000 pounds we raised, about a quarter of it needs repayment in the next few months. So where that money is going to come from, or if it's going to come, and we have to, I guess, be prepared to also say, if it's not going to come, we have to sell the house. But I think that's kind of the situation that we're in.
Thank you. So the same question to George and Campbell. What transition do you find yourself in, and how is that for you now?
You okay, mate? Yeah. So back in 23, we, AES Solar, went through a management buyout. Now, there was no intentional thing of when the timing was going to happen. It was just a process that we went through. And it just coincided that actually when the deal went through, everything was agreed, and then we announced it with everybody. It did happen to be in the winter solstice of 2023. Now, I remember at the time when I made an announcement to the company, and it was sort of speaking to people, thanking George for everything that he's done over the years for the company. It was also indicating that, winter solstice ties in with the solar geometry. Obviously, being a solar company, that's quite an important thing for ourselves. And the point is, it's an extreme point of when we're going through certain cycles, but it's also an important point for balance. And therefore, the main thing is for a company when it's suddenly going through management buyout, a transition where there's a lot of upheaval for everybody, it was try to keep balance for everybody, try to make sure it went smooth. One of the big things for me is trying to evolve, so not doing anything drastic or any big changes. And it was making people aware as well that there's actually a natural thing that's happening here. And I guess that's the big challenge for me. I've worked with George for since 2005, 2006. I've had a wonderful relationship working with George. George has always been a perfect balance for me. I'm very much technical engineering. George would be the one that would, the sales, the drive, and that side of things, and we just complemented each other. There's a big lot of change that then for me, it wasn't just, George meeting that balance, it was also a friend as well. Mm-hmm. Suddenly the whole working, relationship on a day-to-day basis, there would be constant contact. I think we're good for one another. But the reality is, as with the seasons and, as years go by, things have to evolve, things have to change. The main thing is I take on the role as being a custodian, and therefore I feel that, at some stage I'll also have to do that passing on. But it's a big transition for me personally, just because I've had such a good working relationship with George over that years.
Thank you, Campbell. Thank you. George?
Thank you. Oh my goodness, I almost had a feeling there. So the transition for me was indeed at that time, at the end of 23, to basically, from being involved in the company 24 hours a day, to ideally for the people that took over, that I would disappear so that they could do whatever they liked. Unfortunately for them, and even more unfortunately for me, I'm still slightly involved, and that is, it's not healthy. It's tiring. It's annoying, because the company has to go a different direction. The direction that wasn't my ideal. The company has become very risk averse, and I was not risk averse, and that's where I think that's how we got where we are. The upside of the transition, as far as I'm concerned, is for me personally, is that it is pushing me into another start, and I find it very difficult not to be wholly involved in commerce. I love it. I like the deals. I like the interactions. I like the technical bits that I understand of a company, and I understood just enough to make it keep it exciting for me. Yeah, that's where it is. It's
Thank you,
still
George.
relatively sad.
Thank you, George. Yeah, I would say you are the archetypal entrepreneur. Thank you. Tim.
Transition is on a daily, on the lips of most of me and most of the team I work with, because we are in the middle of it, and it's a complex arrangement because we're transitioning into two businesses with different clients, different customers, different intentions, also at the same time serving a community and a holidaymakers and visitors, and we're fully operational at the time of transition and rethinking. It is also very hard.
Yes.
On me and my colleagues and the board and my staff team we work with, because it's working in a culture where generally most people don't like change. I happen to like it a lot, but the thing I'm probably quite weird about this. But I think is that it is complex, it's difficult, and particularly in the case of the NFD, we are uncertain who will own us within 6 months.
Indeed.
It could be Saudi Arabia, it could be one person like George, I have no idea, but it is unsettling. But also, I also have to say, register much appreciation that the staff team I work with have risen to the challenge. And that's humbling for me, and personally for me, is trying to work in an organization that is trying to be a learning culture, and if to achieve that, you have to have a non-blame culture, and works within a community where that is a bit of a challenge, putting it mildly, is that we have to work in a situation where we get fantastic appreciation. The one last week was from the PPG for a round of applause on the dog signs, which is our biggest achievement for the last 12 months, I think. But the second thing is that we also get a lot of weird emails. People assume we're in charge of things. And one of the lessons I've learned in this transition is that we're not in charge of lots of it. We're trying to do our best, and that's all we can achieve. And something that Terry Gilbert said to me a few weeks ago is, you can only do what might work.
Yes.
It won't be perfect. As long as you're fine-tuning it, the transition will work. But personally, it has been difficult. I will say, and she's over there, but if I didn't get support of friends and family and wife, it wouldn't work.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. All transition is hard. Thank you, Tim. All transition is hard. It's change, and change is hard. Ian?
It is hard, and it doesn't always take the amount of time that you thought it might take. While sounding facetious in the earlier round, I sat in this circle on this topic in transition zone last year, thinking that I would be speaking from a very different place this year. And while on many levels, there's been a lot of richness in that extra time, and certainly seeing the last stage of building starting to emerge out of the ground, seeing the increased understanding of the whole community around just how much Duneland has held and done for as long as it has been heartening. And to be in a place where the common land and the infrastructure and the assets are actually starting to move. We have crossed thresholds in the properties being sold, a few still available if people are interested, residential and commercial. But not very many, act fast. Actually has us in what feels like a very welcoming position of, oh, we are now looking at the steps to wind this company down. And even a year ago, it was kind of a figmentary thing, but now there is actually a roadmap emerging, and it feels great. Would have loved it, and I'm sure the shareholders would have loved it quicker. Here we are.
Thank
Moving
you.
on.
Thank you, Ian. Jonathan.
Yes, planned transition. I think I actually wrote my resignation letter 3 years ago. And Christine there, my partner, will say, well, actually this started 8 years ago. The challenge is that I have been involved with Finhorn Hinterland Trust for over 20 years. And it has been, you know, we talked about beginnings, that enthusiasm, why you do something. And that's because it's the land I learned to love nature on. And that's actually guided my life all these years. And it has been wonderful to be able to come back and to give back to the land that gave me so much. The problem is that I actually became the weak link. Because if we're looking at sustainability and resilience, and actually organizations are important, they take good ideas into the future. We individuals, well, we have limited lifespans. And when you're dealing with land, we have to think not just 5 or 10 years, but 50, 100 and more ahead. And how are these good ideas going to be taken into the future? So I become definitely the weak link, because no one's going to take on what I do. And it's been a whole process to get to where we are. We did bring in free, just enterprise out there. They're free for consultation. They gave us good consultation about how we might do this, but it actually has involved some hard work as well. You know, a brain dump of what's held in my head, you know, a couple of hundred things, you know, just stick it down on a bit of paper and see where that actually, the roles, what sort of roles it might go into. This is planned transition. We've done a lot of work to get this far. What roles and responsibilities are there? Some of them will need to be paid, some will be voluntary. Ours is a voluntary organization. We want to keep that ethos. We want to keep that spirit of people giving from the heart in it. And yeah, so it's taking quite a bit to get to this point. And I stepped down on the 18th of September, so soon.
I think we'll be having quite a party for that one then, Jonathan.
Well, I don't know, but yes, we'll have something there, I'm sure. But what I was going to say is, yes, it has been planned. And, you know, thanks to Laura there, who's helped to do this. It's needed help from other people. That's been really important. And I actually feel very proud about how we've done this. How it will actually take place is a different thing. When we have looked at, well, what challenges might be there. But I think one of the things is, how do you keep the spirit, the ethos of an organization when, you know, there's founder syndrome here. Yes. How do we actually keep that and it not become an institution and just work?
And I think that's the hard thing. When you start an enterprise, you have to love it. You have to put your whole self into it. and then you have to hand it over. And you've got to make sure you hand it over to the right people at the right time. Can I just thank everybody for your openness and your honesty, and can I appreciate the wealth of kindness and experience we have here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, off you go. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I need to get out of the limelight, so. To get out of the light, it's too bright. Yeah, it's too bright. Okay. Then the light's shining in your eyes, but yes.
So welcome to the last circle that we have to explore life cycles in organizations. And I'd like to start like the last transition cycles did. I'm going to pass the mic around, and I'd like you to introduce yourself and identify the organization that you're going to be speaking about in our next round relating to endings. So I'll start with Lee.
Thanks, Marilyn. My name is Lee, and I'm here to talk about my business in MAC, but I'm representing Ways to Make It Count Limited.
And your type of business is?
Oh, well, my business was called McKellen Kelly.
My name is Kathy, and I'm here representing the Findhorn Foundation Trust.
And I'm Fasil. I'm here representing Greenbridge Organics.
I'm sorry about the second time for me. I'm representing NFD as the about to be ex-executive director of NFD.
Thank you all. Now I'd like to just do a round about the experience that you're having personally. How do you feel about going through this transition stage of ending?
Well, I'm well over it now. I've got through that. It wasn't as difficult as I expected it to be. It took a wee while. I mean, because it happened in the middle of COVID, it took actually 18 months, and you would not ordinarily expect it to take about 6 from start to finish, but COVID intervened, and so I had to postpone some of the stuff that I needed to do.
So what was the question again?
How do you feel about going through this experience of ending the organization?
Okay, so next.
Share what's appropriate.
That's how it feels. Yeah, that's how it feels. Yeah, anyway, thanks for laughing at that. Right, it's really, yeah, it's, an ending for me, I'm finding the emergent process of how the organization, how the trust wants to end as a being, an entity. So I relate in that way a lot to the unseen, and also very much the people involved as well. And sometimes they very much complement each other, and sometimes they're in deep contrast. And deep contrast is very difficult to hold as a trustee who, in those moments, I have my connection to then visit related to how to proceed. So it's both a very wondrous experience to work with such a meaningful and deeply transformative, and that I imagine that everybody here has had some level of connection with, an experience of, and transformative moment in our own lives, and my deepest desire is that be preserved in such a way that it's held precious as the trust does unwind and moves into community in such a way that it finds the depth and meaning and belonging that the foundation gave to everybody who visited. So that's a big challenge. and also a deep, deep desire.
How do I feel about it? So we wind down Greenbridge this year. I feel great, actually. It's one of those things. You talked about cycles. I know. There's a reason I'm saying this. You talk about cycle of businesses, and you don't really realize when you start, you're very passionate about this, whatever you're starting. So it's almost 10 years old, the Greenbridge at this point. When we started, the whole market was not, we wanted to bring really decent organic coffee back to the local, and because it wasn't here. You really get really bad coffees here. And this is where we talk about subsidizing your own habits, I think is the word. But then it started that way. It was really great. But the market changed. I mean, for the past 3 years, the whole coffee market has changed. The price has shot up to probably about 80-90%. The organic listing has vanished from 25 to about 3. So most of this is linked to climate change because most of us don't really see these things. So for the past 2-3 years, Greenbridge has been limping along, and as you do, because you have attachment, you subsidize these things. And actually it's very important because I want to highlight this concept of it. Your attachment actually deceives you as a result of it. So at the back of it, as a business is starting to bleed, which it does, like the bucket concept that we talked about, you keep going, but it's okay, I'll just keep doing it. And some of us have multiple hats that we're passionate about as well, and that doesn't help either. So over a period of time, the beautiful thing becomes quite heavy. So it reached to that point where it's actually draining me. And we had to take a position and kind of go, we really love it. Are we going to pour any more time and energy to it? And the answer is no, because we have, like I said, we've got a lot of other passions. So therefore we took the decision, put your attachment aside and look at it to what it is. The reality of it is it needs to wind down. And it's the best thing we could have done with it. So it felt really nice because you're releasing something you've been attached with. And when it comes to business, we don't realize how much of our attachment actually becomes a disaster for the next generation. And I think when the time is right, because things are working. When they're not working, you have to really look at it and accept it and go, great, there's nothing to do it. There's a lot of lesson in that. The lessons is so much, you learn so much of it, but then you can use that lesson to other things. And personally for me, that's a relief. And now I get to do all my other passions. So
Enterprise fairs.
Enterprise fairs. So you carry on. But it's very important to notice your business and the cycle it's going. One day you're a star, and another you're like what they call a cash cow, and another you become a really, I think they call it a dog or something. It's different pattern and cycle that goes to it. You have to see it for what it is. But attachments is very important. So anyway.
Thanks.
Tim.
I'm going to take a slightly different lens and look at it from a self point of view, because from a self-reflective view, because in June of this year, began to say to the board of NFT that it's time for succession, time for me to move on and change. We put together a plan, and that plan has not fully worked. I like it to be. So in the next, probably the next few, well, certainly to move away from being what they call an exec director, where you're also chair of the board, to be actually just the chair of the board and handing over the reins to more operational, less of an operational role. But it makes you think about well, you've been leading a group, an organization through change that I've done the last 2.5 years. What's it meant for you? What have you learned from it? What have you valued? What you've failed at in that process? And what I would say that we've turned the place around, okay, we're doing things differently, it's got very good stuff going on, that's all good. From my side, it also is a challenge because there's a sense of failure, because of the changes that have been imposed on us, we've not gone as fast as we'd like to have gone. And that's always a sense of, that didn't work out. But also you have to value, and the other for me is, I, as you know, are very keen about an appreciative inquiry approach to things. And last year I talked about emancipating staff and not just empowering them. That's very hard because staff don't like to make decisions sometimes. They like to pass it up the line. And if a maturing organization, as you want to have, you've got to do that. You've got to get staff able to make the decisions and deal with the accountability. That is still a change. Some of that has worked really well. I'd like to have gone further. But regret doesn't work out. You know you have time to leave. And also I noticed on the 1st of August this year that I was 75. So this might be also a point where your age kicks in here and do other things in your life. But I think I've learned an enormous amount that how hard it is to run a staff team with human beings. It is, and they're all different, they're all talented, they all have good things, and so have I bad things, but it is a sheer challenge. But when you have that moment, I had it this week in the staff team in the office where everyone was working flat out, creative and superb, in a way solving issues and working solutions, then it's all worth it.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone. Now, I've heard each of you refer to this stage in the life cycle of your organizations in different ways. And I acknowledge there's different types of organizations sitting in the circle here. And you've been alive as organizations for shorter or longer times. It strikes me that each of the organizations that's represented here has actually lived through the COVID and the lockdowns and the impacts of that. But now you're at a stage you've all remarked on and recognize that you have either ended, as Lee already has, or you're in the process of seeing what the actual ending will be. Could you just share with us what steps or what ways that you would like to see as the best possible way to celebrate the life of the organization that's ending? Can you imagine what would be a really good ending? Tim? I'm sorry, Lee?
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about our feelings, but obviously not. I just want to say that, because I didn't actually really get a chance to say, that it's actually quite a thing to sell a business or to move on. So I was in business for 20 years. I had 1,500 clients over the course of that business. And in making the decision to move on, I was 54, 53, something like that, so I was still quite young. And I just decided to sell it. So you have to go through the stages of finding a buyer for your business. And I did that, and I interviewed 6 other accountants, and I came up with a short list, and then I sold it. But it's still quite an emotional thing to do. I'd been there for 20 years, running that business. That's something you have to cope to. And I also had to cope with COVID right in the middle. I'd interviewed 6 people, and I couldn't get in contact with the ones that I wanted until nearly a year later. Sorry, the question again is to...
How did you imagine ending it? How did you actually end it in a way that was...
Well, I mean, it had come to it was 2018-19. I had decided that I really wanted to try and stop it at 55. And it was time to sell. So I started the process in 2019 after initially thinking about it. And as I say, it then took longer than I anticipated that it would do because of COVID. How I felt about it?
How did you celebrate it?
How did I celebrate selling the business? Yes. Well, I got money in my bank account. I didn't actually sort of break out the bunting and go skipping down the street. I mean, like I say, there's a sadness to it too, because it's been part of your life so long. But no, I didn't celebrate it, but it was just something that had come to, I think, probably a natural conclusion. By the time I came to sell the business, I think I passed on about 120 clients. So I'd already started the process of kind of winding it down. Shall I move on then?
Yes.
Okay, so celebrating.
Yes, and any way that you want to mark the and imagine marking the end of it in the way that you think is fulfilling and
Right,
positive.
yeah. Oh, fulfilling, positive. Again, high dream, that original point where I heard Findhorn, the word, and then the path that I walked, and the appreciation of that, and the wonder and the engagement and all the different ups and downs, ins and outs, the creative process, to come to the point where the trust is blessed, appreciated, and held in gratitude, and all the hearts that have contributed, and for all the hearts that have contributed toward the journey on that it came to do. Deeply acknowledging the founders and their the depth of where they lived in themselves, and attempted to, and often succeeded in passing that invitation along to us to live from that place in ourselves, and for me to feel that, me personally to feel that, to a large extent, I feel that I've really deeply received that gift, and leave with that sense of divine fulfillment that was the promise when I arrived.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
What was the question?
We celebrate.
Celebrate.
Can imagine
Okay.
the best possible.
The best. So when you're winding down an organization, it's very difficult to celebrate, just so you're aware. So, but the beauty of Groombridge is the fact that it's given a lot of these coffee lovers an absolute ride for the last 10 years. Which meant the fact that we're leaving in a very highly sophisticated people behind that know what coffee should taste like. So, and I think, I'm looking at Ian. It's a really great to know, as those people who love Greenbridge, to know actually what you should deserve. You should be deserved when you buy coffee beans. And you should ask, why is everyone else's taste different?
Celebrate, Tim.
My perfect celebration of these things is when you walk away, no one notices. The team is continuing to function well and fun and exciting, and someone says to you, thank you, and that's enough.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for sharing these stories. And now we've floated down the river and we're moving to the shore. But I just want to invite an appreciation from the community for all that these organizations have contributed, and to remind you that we have traditions in many of our cultures for celebrating the endings of things, and some of them even include a wake. And we might be able to think about how to celebrate and hold the endings that naturally happen in our community, and find ways to celebrate the legacies that you're leaving behind, as well as all of the contributions that you've made during the life of the organizations. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Fasil. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Lee, for sharing your stories in this stage of organizations.